All right, hey there, folks. Welcome to yesterday's news for September 12th, 2018. First thing I'm going to talk about briefly that actually is relevant to today is the hashtag I'm with Norm. I don't know if the hashtag's really going to catch on or not, but I'm joining in. So if you didn't know, Norm Macdonald was booted from The Tonight Show, I believe it was, over a joke he made about the Me Too movement, in which he was making a very important point, which was, hey, I'm all about, protecting women from predators and stopping predators and punishing them and all that, but we can't use membership in a group as the criteria for, guilt or innocence, believing people, etc. So that's a valid point, an important thing to say, and he said it in a tremendously funny way, and that got him booted from The Tonight Show, and that's not okay. I've heard a lot of people complaining you can't censor comedians. Comedians are not, I don't believe that, being a member of a group gives you special rights. So comedians don't have special rights, but it's a bad sign when that's who you're going after, I guess. It's one thing, hey, if you're going to have a show and you're going to like The Tonight Show, you're going to avoid controversial figures. That's understandable. But the idea that saying, you can't judge guilt or innocence by someone's gender is controversial is seriously disturbing. That should be common sense. We should all agree with that's, you can't judge guilt or innocence based on gender, and to do so is wrong. We should all agree on that. And the fact that Norm would say that in the form of a funny joke and then get ostracized as if he had said something controversial is very, very disturbing. So, follow that hashtag or promote it, whatever you do. And because this is not an okay trend to set as far as booting people for saying things that should be common sense. Anyways, I guess I should, the somewhat of a broader point to make is that, this seems to be another trend going on right now, is that as soon as you criticize some element of something that you therefore, disagree with the core mission or the moral virtue that is at the heart of it, whatever. So, in the case of the Me Too movement, I've had my own criticisms of it that, again, the basic premise, I'm like 100% on board. That's a big deal, an important thing, something that hasn't gotten the scrutiny and attention that it deserves, but that there's a lot of bad that jumped on that bandwagon, and that does not mean I disagree with the core mission of catching predators and stopping them and protecting women from that and empowering them against it, et cetera, et cetera. I just think that in that process we can't allow that to be fuel for playing identity politics and such, which leads into my next topic. This didn't happen today, but I watched the video today, and it was, I believe it was a conversation between Jordan Peterson and Douglas Murray. So one of the things that Peterson's been saying for a long time is kind of that, on the right, there's this well understood, clear delineation between acceptable and unacceptable, and that is claims of racial or ethnic superiority. And I'm not going to get into definitions of left and right, etc. I'm just going to go with his definitions. But he's always said, that the line isn't as clear on the left, and that he doesn't really know what the line is on the left, where the left goes from being, passionate about what the left is supposed to be there for, and where it becomes pathological. And but he actually said it in this interview, but he didn't notice that he answered his own question, so it's kind of funny. The line is collectivism. The line is, and it's in both cases. The line on the right is, as he conceptualizes the right, is where membership in this group changes your moral status. Okay, and it's the same thing on the left, where the anytime you put the needs of the group ahead of the rights of the individual, that's the line. Anything that gets you, anything that leads down that road logically, even though it doesn't necessarily manifest in that way. People on the left don't necessarily proudly proclaim that belief, but they'll proclaim beliefs that are predicated on that, or would necessitate such arrangements in their execution. So a friend of mine, at least Facebook acquaintance, we went to high school together, calls himself a libertarian socialist. I know it's silly, but he has this conception that it's like certain kinds of property, you have property rights, but then as soon as it's capital, then suddenly it must be owned by the collective. And it's like, look, you can say that, and not necessarily, you can express that in a way that does not explicitly say, this group of people has this set of rights and this group of people has a different set of rights. But that's if you were to put the theory into practice, that's what you get. People who do more with what they have than, sustain themselves have less rights than people who only sustain themselves with what they have. That's the consequence of that theory. So, and that's the thing. It's like, that's what the communists and the Nazis had in common, and what was the core error in the philosophy was that the needs of the group supersede the rights of the individual. That was the core error, and the thing that they have in common. The other thing they have in common is the idea that that a committee of experts or some group of people can orchestrate economic activities better than the market. That's so it's different groups of people having different rights, which is why socialism always ends in genocide, and believing that you can orchestrate an economy better than the market can is why it always ends in starvation. But those two ideas are the things that the fascists and the communists had in common, and which is why those of us on the outside, those libertarians, conservatives, etc., look at it and like, how do you think that these are different? How do you think that communists and Nazis are different? And and that's one of the things that I would tend to have a beef with Peterson on, is that he conceptualizes left and right in that sort of classic academic sense that I think misses the point, that what the communists and the Nazis got wrong is what they had in common, and differentiating them based on nationalism versus globalism, or ethnic identity versus class identity, like those are really not meaningful distinctions. You're just swapping the labels around. But when you have people who don't understand that there is that axis of individualism versus collectivism, that's the only paradigm that they understand, I suppose. So, anyways, so if Jordan Peterson ever finds this, which would be hilarious, if he answered his own question on what is the line that the left crosses to become pathological, and the line is that different people have different rights based on their economic status or their ethnic status or their group identity of any sort. That is where it goes wrong. As soon as you cross into any form of collectivism, then you're in pathological territory. So with that, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow.